going to be my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Supervisor James Gore from Sonoma County. He's the current National Association of Counties first vice president, and he's a former CSAC president. Mr. Gore, you're going to give us a little update on 2017 fires and where we are today.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Valenzuela. And I want to start by thanking Senator Padilla. Since the time you've been a senator, you've leaned in with us, and you've used us as a resource on the ground. And you've not only listened, but you've taken action. We had a conversation right when you took office, and then we invited you to come out, and you hosted a roundtable out here with about 4 or 5 different counties in the North Bay, many of whom had, like us, been multiple disaster communities. Unfortunately, the title of my presentation is, as it's listed in the run of show, is from 2017 today, how one county has emerged as a leader in disaster planning. The reason we're a leader is because this is what we've been given by the world. I believe at this point, I think I lost count at somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 or 8 presidentially declared disasters in the last 5 to 6 years in Sonoma County, and maybe about another dozen times that we've activated our emergency operations center, not under a presidential disaster declaration, but under a local one. Things like when our public utility shuts down the grid and we have to supply vital resources to individuals with functional and access needs. So we're here owning our place in the present and striving into the future. I think the most important thing to realize is that you can become a community that is leaning in and is embodied by the word resilience rather than a reoccurring disaster area, but you got to take action. So in 2017, when we got hammered by the Tubbs, the Nuns, and the Pocket Fire as a part of the Sonoma Complex and the North Bay firestorm, we lost more than 5,000 homes and more than 7,000 structures in Sonoma County, and tens of thousands of acres burned. If you think about what we dealt with in the days following that, from the fog of war to going straight into action and mobilizing community, creating block captains to help in the rebuild process, moving the block captains into COPE, Citizens Organized to Prepare for Emergencies, CERT, Citizen Emergency Response Teams, all the way into our government processes, which includes things like creating a recovery and resiliency framework with 200 separate actions that we had to track ourselves on. Everything from executing an active display of alert and warning systems, live code with our community in English and in Spanish, going into heat zone areas and having folks give live feedback to us on did they get those texts, did they get those alerts, did they sign up for alternate redundant systems, over to creating a dynamic AI-fueled fire camera system that informs now our operations with an enhanced Department of Emergency Management with significant staffing, preparedness work, planning, but also folks who I join on Saturday mornings to do evacuation training in disaster-prone or high-risk areas where we wake up our constituents on Saturday mornings with high-low sirens driving up through the hills so that they can do their own planning, test things in real time. We've lived it. We truly have. And the way to do good disaster management is to do good planning and do, in my mind, the most necessary part of planning, which is train. There's so many folks around the 3,069 counties in this nation who have active plans to manage disasters, but they don't always train with live code. Senator Padilla, I think one of the things that, if I'm going through a list of not only what we've done that's been good, but things that are needed, is as a county official, one of the things that drives me nuts is to go into other counties and to try and encourage best practice adoption by saying, hey, you guys got to test your alert warning system. Don't be like us where it was a black eye and it took us a year and a half to get to a place where we're functional and now to a place where we're competent and on our toes on it. I honestly think that if there's a community that has a EOC and in an active emergency function is they should be required to do alert and warning trainings, communications with their community. Shouldn't just be FEMA as the national entity sending those out once a year. It should be us doing it. I think the other thing is to realize that a biggest part of reform needed going forward is for us to look at the individual assistance part of FEMA. Should that be managed by FEMA, even though a lot of it goes into health and human service and economic development programs? And while there's so much of a strain on emergency management agencies and FEMA itself, and in our case, Cal OES, which does fantastic work, should we be managing as a service agency all these things that are currently managed through other departments and other agencies, both federal and local? But we need to also look at the individual assistance program and realize that even though it's designed for people who don't have insurance to get a little bit of help to recover, at the same time, many of those least fortunate in our community, undocumented, many of those who don't have a lot of paperwork, renters, they fall through the cracks. I think the other thing that we all know we have to work on is insurance solutions beyond things like the California Fair Plan, which is a insurance of last resort that is now, because of the insurance leaving the state and certain high risk areas, it's becoming an epidemic, and that is becoming a insurance of first option, which it's really not designed to do. I think the other thing is that we have to continue to look at how compliance is stopping active programs from getting on the ground. We have put hundreds of millions of dollars in vegetation management, in grid resilience, in community organizing, in home hardening programs, in insurance partnerships. One of them was recently announced, well, I say recently, 2 or 3 years ago by President Biden as a $37 million grant out of FEMA BRIC, Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities. Still, we're working great with FEMA on getting that on the ground, but the compliance world turns an announcement of something that seems like it's going to hit the ground in the next few years into a 4 to 5, 6 year project. We also have to look at how disaster funding from federal and state agencies hits the ground with building local capacity and putting local people to work with good wages. We cannot live in a world where we have folks shipped in under federal minimum wage from off in the countryside to live in, quite honestly, substandard conditions and to build back our communities on the cheap. The other thing I think we need to lay in on with the federal government is how to help states and local entities with misinformation campaigns. When I was in Maui recently with Bob Fenton and with others, we're actively seeing subversion from other countries, from China, from Russia, from others that are spreading misinformation intentionally to continue to have confusion dominate the scene locally. There's a lot we could talk about, but I just want to state that we are on our toes. And if you want to come see a community that embodies that, I welcome you to show you around, to dig into our systems. And then once again, thank you, Senator Padilla, for using the California State Association of Counties as a springboard to advance legislation. And we would really like to work with you and challenge the greater Congress to create a bicameral, bipartisan committee to develop legislation that deals not just with disaster management, but true resilience. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you all today.